I'm really, really just so happy to be here to introduce our speaker today. So I'm going to get right to that. First of all, I've known Natalia for many, many years, and she is very heroically stepping into a new stage of her life. And I'm really happy that we can support her through our community here. I think that her talk today is going to be incredibly special. So Natalia was born and raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. She studied poetry and architecture and landed in Columbus by way of Chicago before starting a family and a career. The daughter of Ukrainian refugees, she bears the weight of an acute understanding of the current war in Ukraine. Juggling family, a recent promotion, and a global pandemic, she's found herself assuming the role of social activist. She suddenly finds herself shouting into a microphone, giving statements to media, and learning what fundraising really means. The very things she finds most uncomfortable to perform. And I can attest to the fact that Natalia is genuinely a very reserved person. So she organizes rallies, she does public speaking, and she's asking people for money, all things that do not come easily to her, but which she finds necessary to do whatever she can to fight for a free and democratic Ukraine. And so if you would join me in welcoming Natalia up to the stage.
Hi, everybody. Here we go. When I think of wilderness, I think of survival skills. Growing up in Winnipeg, Canada, the wilderness is often right on your doorstep. From an early age, we were taught how to survive a blizzard. You stay put, because it's a matter of life and death. The nearest big city of any sizable population is at least 7 hours away, east, west, south. And if you drive north, the road just eventually ends. Northern cities depend on air transport and ice roads. But Winnipeg itself is a great little city with a lot to offer. I had the opportunity to belong to a pretty neat scouting organization called PLAST. It's a specifically Ukrainian scouting organization for both boys and girls. This is a photo from a summer camp I attended when I was 15, where without electricity or running water, we were building or digging our own latrines, and showering was the lake. That's me. At a certain age, you get a handbook, like once you're like a teenager. And I just found this thing absolutely fascinating. It's Життя в пласті, which means life in plast. So it has wilderness facts in it, how to build different types of fires. It was pretty thorough, how to build a bridge. Just like all international scouting, the bottom line was be prepared. Growing up in Winnipeg, I was surrounded by a large Ukrainian community. There were so many Ukrainians that there was even a Ukrainian bilingual program at the public school. So the afternoon was all in English in the morning, Ukrainian in the afternoon, and class in French because Canada. PLAST meetings were held Saturday afternoons after Saturday morning Ukrainian school. Sundays we went to church. Monday was church youth group. Here's the nursery school I went to in our church basement. Tuesdays was bandura practice. Bandura is the national instrument of Ukraine. After the fall of the Soviet Union, relatives came to visit and brought a bandura with them, and basically it was unsaid. I learned how to play it. Here I am with another bandura that was made specially for me. It's a special style called a Poltavka. It's from the region where my family comes from. The importance of family was a given. They were there for you, they had your back. We worked hard and we celebrated hard. Always plentiful dinners with food and wine, and often singing around the table for hours. In Canada, just like Ukraine. That's me in there somewhere. We hold strong even today, as me and my kids travel up to Winnipeg for Ukrainian Christmas every year. But our family in Winnipeg was pretty small compared to some of my friends' families. My grandparents and parents were refugees after World War II, cut off from their relatives in the Soviet Union for many years. Here's a table of refugees eating, drinking, celebrating, singing, who created their own families. I grew up knowing many aunts and uncles, aunties and uncles, but they weren't related to me. We made our own family. They became like family through shared experiences. Let me explain about those shared experiences. The 20th century was not kind to Ukrainians. And it took me a long time to piece together the family history, because it wasn't easy to talk about. Bolshevik revolution, collectivization meant the end of private property. So one of my grandfathers came from a family so poor, he was sold into serfdom. He didn't have shoes, and in the coldness, he would warm his feet in the paddies of the oxen herds that he tended. In Ukraine, even his family was collectivized. His father, labeled kulak, which meant wealthy landowner, and sentenced to hard labor in Siberia. My grandmother's father resisted and was straight out shot in the front yard of her house in front of her family. And then 1932, the Holodomor. Holodomor means famine genocide. Collectivization wasn't going well for Stalin in Ukraine, and so he kicked it up a notch and just removed all the food. Conservative estimates land at 4 million dead, but Soviet record keeping was not as meticulous as Nazi record keeping. So some people would say the death toll was upwards of 7 to 9 million. My grandparents barely survived, but they did, and were forever terrified speaking about it. And then World War II, the Eastern Front constituted the largest military confrontation in history, and it went back and forth over the territory of Ukraine. So as an army receded, they slashed and burned everything they could so as not to leave resources for the advancing army, and back and forth. As a result of Nazi advances towards the end of the war, Germany required more and more resources. They began taking Ukrainians and other Slavic people. Slavs were Untermenschen, as slave laborers. And this is how my grandparents escaped the Soviet Union. After the war ended, these Ukrainians ended up in displaced persons camps, DP camps, often repurposed concentration camps where they waited to be sponsored by people in countries accepting refugees. So Canada, the US, also Australia and Argentina. But before that, they also had to fight against repatriation, being sent back to the Soviet Union, which often meant firing squads upon arrival because anyone who had left the Soviet Union was immediately deemed a traitor. And now history is repeating itself. The morning of Thursday, February 24th, I woke up before my alarm. I read the news headlines and it was filled with despair. The social media exploded and my Ukrainian community started asking, what are we doing? Are we gonna rally? For many years, I was able to lay low here in Columbus. Ukraine was independent. The diaspora didn't need to preserve Ukrainian culture anymore, like under Soviet times. Our community had held a few rallies in 2014 when Russia first invaded Ukraine, but this was bigger. We actually had the world's attention like never before. How do you organize a rally to stop a war? My class handbook didn't have a chapter on that. And I can't even remember how it happened that I started organizing the rallies. I don't know, someone had to do it. Our first rally I really only sort of organized. A Ukrainian student from Ohio Dominican, desperate to do something, called the rally as the rest of us were dithering what to do and when to do. So we took that and ran with it, and I reached out for help from a friend and then a friend of a friend. Actually, a BLM organizer helped me navigate the scene. I thank them with the entire depth of my soul. They held my hand through that whole process. I had been really worried about attracting the wrong kind of protester, those wanting confrontation. So it went okay. Our megaphone died, but my organizer friend had theirs on hand for us to use. And so I learned how to promote events about mutual respect to crowds of diverse people. I learned how to use a megaphone. I learned how to mitigate risks of violence from counter-protesters, and I started giving media interviews, my own personal torture. So then we had another rally. Here I am trying to rally the crowd without bursting into tears. And it was around this time that my partner turned to me in the kitchen one day and said, "I've never dated anyone trying to stop a war with a megaphone." I never thought I'd be that person. And then there's another rally. One of the people who helped immensely was Darina here in the photo with me. She grew up in Mariupol. Mariupol held out for a long time against Russian invasion. Her family luckily was able to flee, but she lost one of her best friends and her beautiful city. I don't know if you remember this from the news. They wrote children on the pavement to try to save the children, but it got bombed anyway. So we rally again, this time for the children. Here is Simon. He's a third-generation Ukrainian American reading a letter from his cousin, a young girl who fled Kyiv with her family. The letter was heartbreaking. And there was only one media outlet in attendance at this rally. So disheartening. As soon as I felt I had this rally organizing thing down, it became clear we needed to do something else. But what? Our latest rally was held at Bridge Park in Dublin. We hope to get closer to Americans at this location, interact, talk with them, exchange ideas, try to explain what we know was going on. It was excellent optics, and a few more journalists came out, but we were still falling short. And as you can see, I feel this acute desperation to help. Through all the generational trauma, knowing the history of our people, it's the most frustrating feeling in the world. See those areas in red? That's where Ukrainians are being shot, killed, tortured, raped, sent to Russia. Children are being kidnapped, sent to Russia. Rape is being used as a weapon to disrupt generational growth. They are trying their best to destroy Ukraine. And the media has been sprinkling the terms alleged crimes against humanity, alleged genocide. It is genocide. For hundreds of years, Russia, then the Soviet Union, then Russia again, has wanted to erase Ukraine because it's inconvenient for them. They treat Ukrainians as inferior for hundreds of years. And now again, trying to destroy Ukraine wholesale. It's for economic reasons. Russia is a mafia kleptocracy, but as well it's ideological. And let me be clear, there are absolutely Russian allies who see through the imperialist rhetoric, and sadly they've been silenced in Russia. It's horrifying. So rallies were good for connecting with other Ukrainians and finding allies. I met some amazing Polish women, but rallies weren't exactly helping Ukrainians in Ukraine on the ground. I realized we had to do more hard things, ask for more help help with a strategic planning session for our local Ukrainian organization, help fundraising, real fundraising, hopefully, help with PR to craft our message. We don't know what we're doing, but we're going to do what we need to do. We're going to figure it out. And in the meantime, it happened to be my birthday. So I organized a little fundraiser for tactical backpacks with the help of this guy. Plast was banned in the Soviet Union, survived in the diaspora, and returned only after Ukrainian independence. It was an acquaintance here in Columbus who connected me to him. He happens to be some chief scout, like of all Ukraine or something. And he connected me with the territorial defense unit soldier where I could communicate directly and figure out exactly the things that they need most. Turns out Plast is still going pretty strong, even in Ukraine, even in wartime. I'll be honest, I learned a lot of songs in Plast, and this one in particular, I remember singing it as a kid, thinking, well, maybe as a teenager, this is overkill. I mean, I didn't always take it super seriously. I have to admit that on more than one occasion, I may have worn my uniform as a Halloween costume. But it turns out it affected me more than I knew and was more formative than I realized. So here's a translation of this particular song. Amid the world on fire and bloody echoes of thundering guns, I will cherish the strength of body and spirit. I will spread beauty and happiness all over Ukraine so that my people will look up into the sky revived. And by the flight of the eagle, taking the thorny paths, I will lead my homeland to a better future. So when I hear talk of negotiated peace with Russia, it is not okay. Ukraine deserves peace, independence, democracy, and its territorial integrity whole. Ukraine deserves victory. Even more importantly, a negotiated peace will not accomplish anything. Russia has never abided by any treaty. So that would be useless. They need to be stopped. We need a victory here and stop them in their tracks. I understand now Ukrainians need to engage with Americans to keep supporting this cause. And this is why I'm torturing myself in front of you today. I thank America for everything they have done so far from the bottom of my heart. And I ask for help getting Ukraine to victory. My message is this. Help from the US right now means ammunition, which again feels so strange coming from, I'm a hippie liberal here, but please send them guns. They will do the work, they will do the fighting. They just need the ammunition. Help them procure the tools. So, oh shoot. Oh, God damn it. Turns out Plast gave me many skills in the many types of wilderness that life throws at you.